have appeared repeatedly in Trish Freidenberg's wonderful play, Surviving Grace. You play my daughter. I am the woman who falls into Alzheimer's. So it's a pleasure to see you in another situation.
I know. I mean, it's great. And I'd seen you 4 years ago, remember, for one of my other books, Total Memory Makeover. And now we have this whole other relationship. And it's always great to see you.
I love it.
You know, and you're so perfect for the part because, you know, my lines are all about my beautiful, elegant mother. How incredible. You're always like wiping schmutz off my face. I always feel like I should have lipstick on when I see you.
See, she remembers every single one of these lines. Okay, Michael, to you, there were signs of a health problem even before you reunited with Marilu. Give us a little of the background because you two knew each other long time ago.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes. The book details the fact that I lived a pretty rough lifestyle. And about 2 years before I got with Marilu in 2001, I had my first episode of blood in the urine. And from that, I had intermittent bouts of blood in the urine. I went to my doctor. My doctor then sent me to a specialist, being a urologist. I went to the urologist repeatedly and got the standard treatment, which was a cystoscopy to look in the bladder. And it never revealed anything to this particular urologist. So I went over 2 years undiagnosed and symptomatic.
And what did you do about it? Anything?
I didn't go beyond my urologist. I was a typical good American patient, a middle-aged American accepting my fate. And so I didn't get a second opinion. I just continued this, accepting these explanations of it being a gallstone or a kidney stone or whatever, which would also seem to have required some sort of treatment.
Some kind of treatment, one would have thought.
Yeah, and I just sort of accepted that until I finally got with Marilu.
All right. So, Marilu, take us back to when you first knew Michael at the University of Chicago. But it was really a very long distance relationship.
Well, long distance. Well, he was my dorm mate's boyfriend.
Okay.
She had met him the first week of school. I met him a couple weeks later and thought, damn, why didn't I meet him first? But didn't dare twinkle in his direction. Right. And, always really respected their relationship. I mean, I adored Linda, and the two of them were really close. We double dated. We hung out. He actually saw me in the original production of Grease, which was even before Broadway or the movie or Grease on Ice, And so he was my friend. But I always really liked him. And I thought he was this great guy, brilliant, handsome, all of that. So anyway, what happened was he and they broke up second year. So he was kind of the enemy on campus. I'd just wave across the quadrangle.
You didn't want to double cross Linda.
Exactly.
So he became the enemy.
Right, of course. Okay. Then I left to become a professional actress. Years later, I'm getting married, or I'm getting a marriage license to my first husband in a courthouse in New Orleans. Who do I run into but Michael? It's like ships passing, totally random. He's living there with his wife and kids. I'm about to get married. I just thought, wow, how come I'm not marrying a guy like that? Okay. That doomed my first marriage.
But fine. In addition, you thought at that moment, I should invite him to the wedding.
Yes,
and you
I did.
Said something to him.
I said, I'm getting married this weekend. Do you want to come to the wedding? Yeah. And he said, yeah. And I said, well, give me your number. I have a great memory. Just give it to me. So I gave him he gave me his number, and I said, I'll call you. And then I got and then I thought, I can't do this. I can't invite him to the wedding.
Because that's really going to mess things up.
It's going to mess things up. Yeah. I probably won't end up getting married if and he was, it wasn't, it sounds even more romantic than it was, because I always did respect that I was getting married, that he was married, but I just always had a feeling about him and just didn't think it was good for him to be at my wedding.
So you went through the wedding.
I went through the wedding. I was married with him for 2 years. Met my second husband. We were together 16 years. 2 beautiful sons, fantastic sons. One of them's graduating this week at Columbia University, and the other one's a sophomore at Northwestern.
Do they have your memory talent?
The younger one does, kind of. He could be tested. he doesn't own it as much as I always did, you know.
Okay.
But yeah, he
So
definitely has it.
then how did Michael come back into your life?
So my second marriage was over. 6 months after my divorce was final, out of nowhere, Michael called me. And I was shocked.
Why did you call her?
Well, I'd actually had her number for about 5 years because a mutual friend had got the number.
But I was married, yeah.
I was in a relationship. She was still married. I wasn't really tracking her marriage or anything. But, you know, come early 2003, I was feeling the need to settle down, to find a life partner. Or that was part of it. I don't know if I was so consciously into the whole romantic part of it. But Marilu, I'd always had a warm feeling for her. I knew about her life.
Yeah.
And
Michael Brown, Marilu Henner. Marilu is a New York Times bestselling author. Together, they've written a new book titled Changing Normal: How I Helped My Husband Beat Cancer. Stay with us. And welcome back. Marilu Henner and Michael Brown are with me. I want you to know that this book is already on the New York Times bestseller list, #1 on Amazon. It's titled Changing Normal: How I Helped My Husband Beat Cancer. Now, Marilu, take us back to the first day you realized that Michael was having blood in his urine. What did you do?
Well, we finally got together. He called me out of nowhere. I was so excited. We decided that we, go out to dinner. I kept thinking, is it a reunion dinner, a date, a reunion dinner, a date? The way I describe it is that we sat in this restaurant for 4.5 hours talking.
More than a reunion dinner.
Yeah. And then we went to my house and we were making out on the couch in the kitchen. That was definitely the date part. And we were madly in love, talking about spending the rest of our lives together. We decided to take this trip together 3 weeks into our relationship. He's got a business in Mexico City. That's one of the places where Brown Trout Publishers has an office. We're in this, fabulous hotel and sharing a space for the first time. And I follow him in the bathroom and I noticed there was a little telltale sign of blood in the toilet bowl. I knew it wasn't mine. And I said, Michael, are you okay? Are you bleeding? He said, oh, yeah. I've had blood in my urine for 2 years. It's no big deal.
Whoa.
I said, what? No, blood in your urine always means something. No, that's not acceptable. Anyway, the more we talked, the more I realized that he had been symptomatic for 2 years. He tells me all these stories. I said, you know what? I've got the greatest doctors. I've been in the health field for a long time. And I'm going to take you to my doctors in Los Angeles. He said, no, let me go see my guy, etc. And we had some traveling to do in the meantime. So finally, he goes and sees his doctor.
His
doctor
okay.
first. And it turned out that his old urologist had passed away. This younger one was now, what? Retired. He retired. Oh, passed away. Yeah. See, I want to kill him. That's in my fantasy mind. He's gone. Both of them. So he retired. The older one retired. The second one, examines him. I'm not there that day because he had made this appointment the same day. He was so blasé about it.
Yeah.
That I went, okay, all right. You think it's no problem?
Yeah.
I'm packing up something for a family member. And it was in 2003, May the 22nd, a Thursday. And what happened was I'm waiting for this phone call. Finally, he calls me and I could tell that it was kind of 2.5 hours later than I thought he was going to call me. And he says, they went in and I have cancer. And I said, wait, what? He said, yeah, it's okay. It's just like little skin tags. This is what the doctor said. It's like little skin tags. They just lop it off. It's fine. It's like, you get a little thing on your face. They lop it off. I went, no. What did he use the word cancer? Did he say cancer? He said, yes. And I said, and it's bladder cancer. He said, yeah. And there was this whole thing and I'm losing reception and I'm in like the boondocks and, outside of El Paso, Texas. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, and now this is 2003. So you can't just go on Safari and queue up information on your iPhone. You know what I mean? So I said, I will be home as soon as I can tomorrow. So the next day I deadheaded home with one of my brothers and I saw him and I said, no matter what happens, we're going to get through this together. I'm going to your appointment next week when they have the pathology report back.
What was it about you, Michael, that was almost passive about this diagnosis, this continuing blood in the urine? I mean, did you not consider that this could really be something serious?
Yeah, well, I think, first of all, that I'm very common, especially among American males. And so I was passive. Yes, I was passive. First of all, cancer, especially in relatively early stages, it doesn't hurt. There's no pain involved. So that doesn't give you the signal. Pain can't be your guide in this case. It has to be something else, some other sort of symptom to get you going. I think I was, 50 years old. I was going into a middle-aged malaise. I was thinking I was breaking down physically. And I think that's one of the reasons I reached out to Marilu to begin with, because I knew that. And
somehow instinctively you knew
intuitively, somehow I found my way through. I groped my way through that. And I have to say that once I finally got the diagnosis, even then my initial reaction was kind of blasé. I write about that in the book. But as time went on, as the weeks went on, I became more and more convinced, especially when I did a cystoscopy and actually saw my bladder and the state of my bladder and realized how bad this was, that it took on a lot more urgency.
And at first, at least one doctor said, well, it's easy. We just take out the bladder, take out the prostate, and you just would not hear of that.
Well, when we went to the follow-up, when we went to the pathology report second meeting with the urologist that he had, and the guy literally said, oh yeah, it's like skin tags. No, we come back. This is May. He said, come back in September. And I said, I don't think so. I said, I think, I don't think so. But thank you. We'll take the reports and maybe we'll see you in September. I don't know. And I said to Michael, this is unacceptable. I said, let me line up some appointments with my doctors, but let's go see what, a typical bladder cancer person, a surgeon would say.
Well, this urologist, he said, come back in September. If they've grown back, we'll just lop them off again.
Right.
So that was his way of treating it. And it's a very common way of treating it. And that's the thing. Everything I went through is a standard procedure. That's standard protocol. It's not unusual what happened.
How common is bladder cancer in men at that age? Do we know?
Well, first of all, a lot of times the people who get it are the people who are either, let's put it this way. I think it's 80, your bladder holds 80 times the liquid, it sits there 80 times more than any other liquid that passes through your body. So if you are a smoker, a lot of photographers, he was a smoker. Yeah. He was also exposed to a lot of chemicals in Rio. But you think about the amount of time that your urine sits in that one organ and can sit there taking in the toxins, and they kind of like settle there almost like a cesspool. It's very easy to imagine that people who smoke, people who are exposed to chemicals, a lot of hairdressers who are exposed to a lot of chemicals, bladder cancer is very high among some of those,
I think the other big issue here is dehydration. If the amount of water that you're pouring through your body or not really has a big effect on your susceptibility to this disease. Bladder cancer is the fourth most common cancer in men and the fifth most common in women, and becoming more common all the time.
And you're talking about dehydration. You're saying we simply do not put enough simple water into our bodies.
Absolutely. Since 2003, I've been drinking about 100 ounces of water a day. I had extreme case because, of course, I had urinary tract cancer, so I needed to really flush myself out and continually do that. But I think everybody, if you get on a diet where you're really drinking enough water, you'll notice that you don't really urinate much more than you did before. But what you're doing is you're hydrating your body, and your body actually needed all that water, and it's just been deprived all this time.
When I spoke in front of Congress, I've done it 7 times, but 2 of the times that I did it was for the dietary guidelines. In 2004, I was one of 2 private citizens that was allowed to speak. There were 25 of us in the room, and 25 of us that could speak. In 2014, I did it again, and there were 50 of us. And I kept saying, let's get water on the food pyramid, or, in the dietary guidelines. No one is talking about water and hydration. It's very, very important. I was also talking about labeling dairy and meat and the other health robbers, as far as I'm concerned.
Because you are a true vegan.
Well, I've been doing this for no dairy, no meat.
Right.
Haven't had dairy since the 70s, and that's another whole story. But
have you got him on the same
almost
diet?
Instantly? Yeah, because I knew I was going to take over his diet, if nothing else.
She took
over.
Sure, yeah. Period. She took over
for sure. But just to get back to the story part, what happened was, after we had seen this doctor, he said, come back in September. We'll just lop it off if there's any more cancer. I had done research in that week while we were waiting for the pathology report. And it turns out that 80% of the people who get bladder cancer do get the papillary. Now, this is 2003 that I'm talking about. So people can't go, oh, it's, so many now. But in 2003, what I'd read was 80% of the people who get bladder cancer do have the papillary kind, which grows up like a little stalk and can be lopped off. There's a second kind that 20% of the people get, which is called CIS, carcinoma in situ. It's red, flat, velvety, and starts to grow down into possibly other organs or through the organ, whatever. So I just had a feeling that Michael didn't just have the papillary kind. I just had an instinct from the way, the symptoms, all those things, that he had the other kind as well. So I said, well, let's go, on my track. Let's go find out. So we went to, before I took him to my doctors, we went to a bladder cancer, the #1 guy in Los Angeles. We walked surgeon. We walked in, and literally he said to Michael, this is your lucky day. And he said, why? And he said, because I have a cancellation on Wednesday. I'm going to go in. I'm going to take out the bladder. I'm going to take out the prostate. I'm going to pull down the intestines and make a neobladder. I'm really skilled at that. And his assistant was like, oh, yeah. And we're very excited about that. We were, this was our lucky day. And he looked at the horrified expressions on our faces. And he said, hey, and don't worry if you two want to have sex, because I'm just going to run a small hose up his penis and you just pump it up 6 times. And I said, well, can we have the 7-pump model? Because we're a sexy couple. I said, and what about nutrition and health, detox? And he said, oh, go have all the steak and highballs you want.
Wow.
So, and then, we was going to follow it up with chemo, radiation, and everything. So we go to the parking lot. We walked away from like, okay, we'll let you know about Wednesday, with these like expressions in our faces. We thought, oh my gosh, are we just going to go like lemmings over the cliff? Yeah. And Michael said, I'm not losing my organs like that. And I said, I don't think you have to. Let's find another way. Let's go to my doctors now.
So who were your doctors? How were they different from the doctors?
They were integrative medicine doctors, which means that they really do use the best of East and West, but they are full AMA doctors. Usually what's happened a lot of times is there's a doctor who's on that path. We just ran into one at the airport the other day. So some came up and told us how much he liked the book. they're on a path and then they have a health crisis. So then they go, oh, maybe what I learned in medical school isn't going to work for me. Let me try something else. And then they go full force into integrative medicine.
I want to remind listeners that we are video streaming this hour because people do know you, Marilu, and now they are knowing you, Michael, and hearing all about this extraordinary journey that the two of you have had. So you see your doctor, and what happens?
And we go to see Dr. Saram Khalsa. I call myself the Doctor Concierge and have called my friends nicknamed me that because I just have been doing it a long time. Put them through.
Yeah.
And know how to connect them with good people. Unbelievable here in Washington, D.C. Dr. Neil Barnard and Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. I mean, they're unbelievable. So we go to see Dr. Khalsa. He immediately asks Michael to write an entire history, an entire health history. Like he wanted to see in letter, in an email form, what is Michael's story? What did he do as a kid? And so many things. I mean, I guess, so many things came out about that.
So many toxic exposures.
Yes.
Throughout my life, which I chronicle in the book because I really expanded on that.
I mean, how come you were so exposed?
Well, in my childhood, I didn't have much choice. I mean, as a kid, we used to have DDT trucks spraying the DDT in the neighborhood. We'd chase the trucks as a child. I happened to be living downwind from the nuclear tests that were happening in Nevada at the time because I was raised in Utah. I don't think that really had any effect, but it was certainly a part of my life. I smoked cigarettes from the time I was 15 till I was 35.
And then Rio, what happened in Rio?
Well, Rio wasn't, Marilu said that. It was really more about the being a merchant marine and having a lot of exposure in the oil field and on ships and the engine room to benzene and other chemicals. So I just had a lot of heavy metal exposure.
And you're listening to the Diane Rehm Show. So
I have to,
So once you took him to the doctor, your doctor, and he had filled out this whole form, what did the doctor do next?
Well, the doctor, we found not only Dr. Saram Khalsa, who was a great, connector of a lot of other people, but we also went to a fabulous urologist who said that, okay, well, let me go in and check again, but I need a little time because he had just had the cystoscopy. And so you can't go in right away.
Right.
But, we were both traveling too at the time. So he was getting supplementation. I was teaching him about food. I taught him how to skin brush, how to use a rebounder.
Skin brush. Tell me about skin brushing. I hadn't heard about this.
It's so funny because it's one of the first things I learned in 1979 when I first decided to get healthy. You get a natural dry sauna brush. You use it before you shower or before you exercise, and you do a long sweeping strokes towards your heart. Women don't do their faces and their breasts. Men just don't do their faces. But you do all the lymphatic parts of your body, your inner arms, under your arms, backs of your legs, inner thighs, and you do long sweeping strokes, bottom of your feet. You do it for 2 minutes. It's going to stimulate your lymphatic system. It's going to open your pores. You're going to end up sweating evenly all over.
How do you do your back?
Well, you either do it with a long hand or you really stretch it or you have somebody do it for you.
Okay.
Now, but you do your back.
Yeah.
That's part of it.
Okay.
Do like the moving and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And
you do it dry, totally dry, and do it before you shower or before you exercise.
And what happens to the skin?
But you go this way. You go towards your heart.
Right.
Yeah. But your skin actually is like a baby's bottom after a while. And your largest organ, I don't care who you are, is your skin.
Right.
Your body sheds 2 pounds of toxins a day through your feces, urine, breathing, everything else. And because it sits on your skin, sometimes sheds, but sits there. What you want to do is you want to really get rid of that outer layer of skin. It's funny. I did it on Conan O'Brien years ago. I was talking about skin brushing, and I skin brushed Conan's arm, and they went in on close up, and it looked like a Hiroshima cloud because he had so much dry skin. They did it in slow motion.
Yeah.
It was so funny.
Okay. So in addition to skin brushing, what did you get him to do?
Oh, well, I got him he went totally plant-based diet because it's not only wet food, but it's also so much better for your digestive tract. He ended up getting, high colonics, infrared sauna. We had an infrared sauna put in the house for him, lymphatic massages, tons of hydration, chelation therapy, shot himself with Iscador, which is extract of mistletoe. That was supervised by Dr. Kalsa. And so his urologist went in, checked again after he'd started, when she was able to go in. But I mean, these things happened over a period of time. When she was able to go in again, she said, I don't know how you guys knew, but he does have CIS.
All right, short break here from the book titled Changing Normal. Marilu Henner is New York Times bestselling author. Her husband, Michael Brown, diagnosed with bladder cancer, and even more, which we'll tell you about when we come back. And welcome back. Marilu Henner is with me. You know her, I'm sure, from her book. She has a phenomenal memory. She also is what she calls a concierge doctor. She refers people to these specialists you need to go to. Marilu Henner did that for her husband, Michael Brown. They've written a new book together. It's called Changing Normal and refers to her efforts and Michael's agreement to change the way he had lived normally. He thought it was normal. It was not so normal. Michael, you want to make a reference to or a differentiation between a urologic specialist and a urologic surgeon.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to say that first doctor who wanted to just go in and start cutting was very specifically a surgeon. And I think everyone needs to know that surgeons are there to sell surgery. They're there to perform surgery. They certainly believe in their surgery and their surgical practice. But if you go to a surgeon, you have to expect that they're going to recommend surgery because that's what they specialize in. That was one thing. I also wanted to expand a little bit on the integrative doctor, integrative medicine. It's not only that they combine the best of East and West and that they believe in holistic treatment. They also tend to have more patience and tend to want to take a longer view on these things, not rush in and start cutting things. Watchful waiting is often a very good strategy for especially early stage cancer, just to wait and see what's really going to happen with this tumor. If it's just going to go away on its own, if it's going to continue to grow, what sort of procedure is warranted. And so we really, think that people should really consider trying to find a more gentle way to deal with their body and their cancers.
Indeed. And what you were saying just before the break is that the doctor did find out it was a cancer in situ.
Yes. Which was the more dangerous one. It was the red, flat, velvety kind that was growing down and into the organs.
Now, normally, would that have been something that a surgeon would have recommended? Let's take it out right away.
Sure.
Well, yes and no. It depends on if you're with a surgeon, because CIS is also, as it turns out, carcinoma in situ is also pretty responsive to the immunotherapy that I ended up taking. So it was a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it's very aggressive, and it had progressed quite a ways down from the bladder into the urethra. But on the other hand, it was responsive generally to immunotherapy.
Right. So then the new doctor, the urologist that I turned him on to, was she said, okay, well, let's go through a round of BCG, which he outlines in the book as well. And it was 6 rounds, 6 weeks of BCG. And then she'd go in and scope again.
BCG.
And BCG is, it's a
bacillus. It's a bovine tuberculosis solution.
It's a liquid tuberculosis. So imagine a liquid tuberculosis where, it was our 5th month anniversary, and I'm watching him. Well, actually, it was like even later than that. But they inject into the tip.
Well, they squeeze it through a catheter into the bladder. So first you get as a male, it's particularly unsettling.
I would
you
think
get a tube pushed up through your penis, and then once it's into the bladder, then they squeeze this 30 milliliter solution.
But 60 Minutes did a piece just last night on this the various types of immunotherapy that are beginning to emerge.
Right, because this was 2003,
Right.
It's funny because we have people saying, oh, well, this is, I say, no, this is a long time ago. He's been in remission 12 and a half years.
Wow.
Well, it turns out that this particular immunotherapy has been around for 40 years, and it's been shown to be actually, it responds, many tumors respond to it, but the difference is that in the bladder is a contained organ. You're able to have the BCG lie directly on the tumors, and for that reason, it seems to be more effective there than anywhere else. So
he's lying down, and it was like 15 minutes on his back, 15 on his side, 15 on his front. It's like a rotisserie chicken. He was like,
is that how you felt?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I got well done doing that, except for from the inside out.
Okay, but then we come upon another discovery. Tell us, Marilu.
I think the story really is that I that the doctor Dr. Kalsa thought that considering I had this bladder cancer and I also had some skin tags, that there might be something more going on. So he recommended I have a full body scan. So I went into Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles, and I had a chest scan of the CT scan of the chest, and also a EBCT, which is a scan of the heart. And this is usually, you get on the table and you go in and out, and they tell you to breathe, and they take the scan. And then I got off the table, and the technician said, okay, well, your doctor will call you in a few days and give you the results. I thought, okay. So I put my shirt on, and I go out in the front, and there's another doctor sitting there, and he goes, oh, so how'd it come out? And I said, I don't know. The guy told me I'd find out in a few days. He says, oh, we can find out right now. What's your name? I said, okay, Brown. He says, okay, and what's your birth date? Okay. He pulls up the scan. He goes, oh, this looks pretty good. Look at the heart. There's no plaque in the heart. Well, but wait a minute. What's this dark spot down here? He says, what was the other scan you got? I said, oh, I got a CT scan of the chest. He pulls that up. He goes, oh, yeah, there's that dark spot again.
Oh boy.
And he says, I'll tell you what, you better wait until the doctor comes, calls you in a few days and talk to you about this.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, oh my. And I was like, by this time I knew about metastasis and cancer.
And you were afraid it was bladder cancer metastasizing to the lung.
So he finds.
So then I go all the way back to my car, get in my car, realize I forgot my cell phone, walk all the way back to that clinic, back to that office again. And there's that same doctor with my scans up, talking to somebody on the phone saying, oh, we got to get this guy in to look at him really right away. Wow. When he sees me, clicks it off. And
right. And he calls me and I said, I will be there. And we were living quite a distance from one another. We hadn't moved in together yet. And I just drove in 2 hours of traffic. And my mantra was, please just be lung cancer. Please just be lung cancer. I mean, that's how crazy you get.
Because
I knew it was cancer. I just wanted it to be lung cancer instead of metastasized bladder cancer.
Why?
Because once it's metastasized bladder cancer, it's now stage 4. And I've seen people being cured from stage 4 cancers with all kinds of very, East and West, et cetera, modalities, procedures, et cetera. But I felt like this was going to be even harder than I thought. And that's the kind of headspace you get in with cancer. I mean, I always say the worst day is the first day, but that was definitely
the other thing is if you got a metastasis from the bladder to the lung, then you might also have one to the brain or the liver.
Sure.
And so now you really start checking, and stage 4 is definitely where you've crossed a threshold. So you don't want to get there.
Let us tell people that they did go in with a needle from your back to that lower lobe and extracted that cancer.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was in November. That was later.
Yeah, that was actually there's a kind of a mix there. What happened was I was in the midst of fighting the bladder cancer, and I was in the midst of taking this immunotherapy.
It's crazy.
And so I kind of had to compartmentalize that and keep the lung cancer kind of over to the side. Again, we're talking about integrative doctors. And they said, okay, well, my pulmonologist said, well, this could be something else. It may not be cancer. We can't needle biopsy it because we don't know if you get a negative. You don't know if you got the tumor or not. So maybe the best thing is we just watch this while you fight the bladder cancer. Mm-hmm. And who could turn that down? Watchful waiting sounded pretty good at that point. So I said, okay, well, fine. So we did
meanwhile,
that.
He's been getting healthier and healthier and healthier. And just so that they know, the first round of BCG didn't work on the bladder cancer. And so everybody was then saying, maybe it is time to get it out.
What happened was the normal 6 treatments of BCG. After that, I waited a couple of weeks, and then I had a cystoscopy. My urologist, my integrative urologist, my intuitive urologist went in there and came back and said, oh, the BCG is having no effect. So this means it really is time to take out your bladder. So she was agreeing with the first surgeon that this is indicated you've got to take it out now. You got an active cancer in your bladder, and now you have this heart problem, this lung problem.
Or you can try one more BCG.
Well, she didn't actually offer that. We insisted on it because we thought that my level of health had raised to a point, my immune system.
The color was coming back to his hair. The color was coming back to his hair. When we first got together, he had a white chest hair, and there was this huge patch of yellow that I said, oh, that's a liver dump. I knew that he was in trouble and that his body was compromised just because I've studied this for so many years. And I could see that his skin tone was changing. His eyes were changing. The hair on his head, on his chest, everything was changing. He was so much healthier.
Well, I think there's another part of that, Diane, which is that cancer is fed by a variety of things. Acidity in the body. Your body is naturally alkaline. If your body is acidic, that creates a good host for cancer-growing tumors. Likewise, if you're consuming a lot of sugar, if you're dehydrated, all of these different reasons why you might be growing tumors. If you turn that around and you quit being acidic and you quit consuming sugar, etc., then you're going to become a more inhospitable host for the cancer.
And stress management too.
All right. Here is a comment on our website from Cynthia, who says, this is a great story, but I'm a little disheartened at the same time. I'm very interested in alternative treatments such as integrative medicine, but many of these practices do not participate in health insurance plans. The kind of medical care remains expensive, this kind, for most families, and that is true.
But vegetables, first of all, cost a lot less than big chunks of meat or chicken or cheese or things like that. So a plant-based diet is always going to help you. Exercise, stress management, there are other ways to do that. Skin brushing, you buy it once, it's $15. You know, there are so many things that you can do for yourself that his cancer actually cost less than if he had had the surgery and the chemo and the radiation that was recommended.
Well, I'd also like to say that in fact, the immunotherapy and all of these things were covered by insurance. So, you know, it is standard procedure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Let me take a call from Asheville, North Carolina. Angela, you're on the air.
Hello, Diane. It's just a pleasure to be able to take part in this conversation.
Good.
I was diagnosed with breast cancer 2 years ago, and I'm around age 70 at the time. And my surgeon got clean margins and, you know, sent me off, and also indicated that my cells were a fairly unaggressive cell, and sent me off to the oncologist to chat. And that chat was, yes, we do radiation, and then we do hormone blocker therapy. And the hormone blocker therapy, by the way, does cause osteoporosis and severe depression, but we have other drugs to tackle that. Like Michael, we left the office and contacted an integrative cancer specialist in Chicago. And he agreed with me that there's evidence, very scientific-based evidence, that shows that vigorous exercise, 45 minutes a day, reduces the risk of recurrence of breast cancer by 50%, which is more effective than the drug.
Absolutely.
I said I would not do radiation. Even the oncologist, the integrative oncologist, was more wanted me to have the hormone blocker therapy. I said I will not. I will treat this with diet. I had studied macrobiotics, so I felt that I could use diet and exercise.
Tell me how you are today.
I am cancer-free, 2 years, MRIs, sonograms, and so on, and cancer-free.
I am so glad for you, and thank you for calling in, and you're listening to the Diane Rehm Show. You all can see Marilu and her husband, Michael Brown. You can see how well he looks because we are video streaming. You've got so much color to your face, and it looks really, really good.
Well,
I want to take one more call here from, I guess it's Cater in Detroit, Michigan. You're on the air.
Hi, good morning, Diane.
Hi.
I just, I wanted to thank Marilu and Michael for sharing their story. I have a very, very similar story to share. I, too, was diagnosed with bladder cancer just about a year ago. And before the diagnosis, I was being told that it is likely kidney stones. And that was causing the blood, that is. And then as time went on, one of the tumors ruptured, causing this massive bleeding. And, parts of this tumor were coming out in my urine. And needless to say, it was very scary. So by the time they finally made the diagnosis, I was in shock. And thank goodness for the Henry Ford Medical System here in Detroit. The doctor was able to calm me down and let me know that it was a very treatable cancer. And he went in and did the surgeries to remove the tumors. And now I'm also doing the BCG treatment.
Good.
Yeah, and thank God, 1 year on, I'm no reoccurrence, and that's what I'm hoping for.
I'm so glad for you, and I thank you for sharing that story. We've got one more caller from the University of Maryland. Bill, you're on the air.
Hi, Diane. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I just wanted to make a point quick based on what I heard when I first turned on the radio. When you have these integrative specialists, they are excellent. I'm being classically trained as a surgeon at University of Maryland, but these integrative specialists are wonderful. However, all of these things that you're discussing, please stress to all of your listeners that they should be done under the supervision of a physician. So even exercise during their treatment should be done under supervision of a physician. And that's my comment. Thank you.
You both agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, we say in the book that everything that I did was under the care of a physician. And, obviously we had to shop around and find the right physicians for ourselves. And I think that's something else when we talk about the affordability of this. it's generally not expensive to go and get a second opinion, and those kind of things that people should take more control of their own medical treatment. They shouldn't just go to the first doctor and accept whatever that doctor
And
says.
there's another element here which I think is so important. Every patient needs an advocate.
Absolutely, because the advocate can take notes. Because the patient, they're in like the land where elephants die. You know what I mean? Like some actors are on stage. That's my acting teacher always said. You know what I mean? It's like the Rolodex in their head is like flipping. You need that. And there is a tsunami of health right now that you cannot stop. I've seen it since I started doing all of this in the 70s. People want better information. They want to be better informed. They want to be with an advocate, but also they have to know their bodies. And don't just go on the internet and look at the first 2 pages. Those people have usually paid to be there. Find some of the more obscure sites to gather a lot of information and cross-connect the information and find something that works for you.
Marilu Henner and Michael Brown. The new book is titled Changing Normal: How I Helped My Husband Beat Cancer. It's already on the New York Times bestseller list, #1 on Amazon. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diane.
And thanks for being here.
Thank you. It's always great to see you.
I hope to see you again doing our play, Surviving Grace. And thanks for listening, all. I'm Diane Rehm.
The Diane Rehm Show is produced by Sandra Pinkert, Denise